Hello everyone and welcome to a music theory tutorial with Gim. In this episode we're going to be covering the basics of the technique referred to as constant structures. Before we get into the theory, I do want to mention that tutorial videos are not meant to contain a vast amount of examples. Tutorials are simply meant to familiarize you with a technique so that you can keep up with analysis videos of actual music. In fact, you might actually be here because of an analysis video. But anyways, let's get into the theory. So, constant structures, what are they? Well, in music, a constant structure is a structure that will be used without altering either the intervals or the quality of intervals. This means that whatever intervallic structure you build, you will retain all intervallic qualities and not conform the structure to your typical diatonic scales such as the major or minor scales. For instance, let's consider this harmonic structure. In relation to the bass note, we have a major 7th, major 10th or 3rd, augmented 11th or 4th, and major 13th or 6th. I would probably label this chord as a sort of D7 sus over E flat, but labeling a pitch set isn't really the point right now. Alright, so now we have this intervallic structure. No matter where I lead the root progression, I will leave this structure fully intact. If it happens to fit inside a diatonic system, then that is fine, but I won't be upset if it doesn't. Which, by the way, this particular chord voicing is not found in any major or minor system more than once, so no matter where I move this chord, it's immediately going to be chromatic. I have absolutely no qualms with this. In fact, when I was younger, I loved using this technique because of how alien it sounded to my ears at times. So we have this structure and we need to move it now. In order to have constant structures, you will have to have multiple structures, right? So what if we moved it up by a major 3rd? Well, how about down by a perfect 4th? What about descending another perfect 4th? If you go back through and analyze each chord played, you'll see that every single voicing is identical in construct. If you have a developing ear, you might even be able to hear their identical nature. So really, I can move this structure anywhere I like, and as long as I do not change its construct, I will be using the constant structure technique. Personally, I find this to be a wonderful and freeing technique. It is less concerned about your typical harmonic guidelines and tonal tendencies, and can be a very creative way to experiment with harmony. This is why it is often considered a technique used for non-functional harmony. Really, the technique itself can become the function, but that's really dependent on the individual composition, and I don't want to dish out an overgeneralized statement that could cloud your judgment. So here's the important question: do people actually use this technique? Absolutely! You will regularly find it popping up in the impressionistic music by the likes of Debussy, Ravel, Satie, and many others. It's also very commonly used when a piece of music is implementing a lot of symmetrical elements, such as augmented chords. There are also jazz cats like Herbie Hancock using this technique quite often in many recordings. Any sample-based genre of music is often full of constant structures due to the nature of, well, sampling. You probably have even been hearing this technique put to use in your favorite pop charts, such as the extremely common power chord or 5 chord, which is a voicing built with only the root and 5th, lacking any defining 3rd, and is often used in parallel sequences. A great example of this would be the iconic Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. Now, this particular instance can actually be found in a diatonic system. We can consider all this to be a pitch set of a natural minor scale or Aeolian mode. But if I were to put the thirds inside of these chords or try to voice lead them, it would drastically change how Smells Like Teen Spirit sounds. So even though it's diatonic and we often talk about constant structure in the context of very chromatic music, it doesn't have to be. That said, we can make this a very chromatic progression, and that's what's also wonderful about this technique. Once you have a root progression determined, you can plug in any intervallic structure and see what it sounds like. Due to the differences between structures, you can end up with multiple harmonic progressions that you're in love with, but didn't really take anything more than, I wonder what this sounds like. I mean, it's not that hard to do, right? So why not try it? To demonstrate, here are 3 different variations based on the same root progression of Smells Like Teen Spirit. So as you just heard, the same root progression became vastly different based on the constant structure being used. And there aren't really that many rules about how to use this technique aside from maintaining the intervallic build. Of course, I'm not suggesting that this technique means you can lazily write music and expect quality, advanced results. You still gotta experiment and put in the time to truly tap into its potential. Alright, so by now you should have a pretty solid idea of what a constant structure is. So be on the lookout for future analyses that display this technique, but also investigate music you're already listening to and even composing. Should you happen to have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out to me. Now if you don't feel 100% sure about this technique just yet, don't worry. Once you start seeing it in music, it will sink in. For now, we're just trying to get the idea of constant structures flowing, but again, please ask questions if you're confused about anything. Until next time, this has been another music theory tutorial with Gim. Thanks for watching.